Nothing is standing in the way of Democrats at the state capitol, except for other Democrats. They're ending the legislative session with a mixed scorecard.
We got a lot of the items that we laid out in the State of the State done. There's always more work to do.
Colorado's got a lengthy track record of expensive natural disasters, but planning for future disasters just got harder. Denverites pack into cathedrals to celebrate the selection of a historic new pope. And Colorado's farmers are making sure their industry has a bright future by teaming up with solar farms.
It's definitely not a traditional way of ranching it by no means.
All that and more tonight on Next.
When the state legislature is the same party as the governor, they can pretty much get whatever they want done. But Democratic Governor Jared Polis did not get everything he wanted from the Democratic-controlled state legislature this session. And yet, you wouldn't know it based on how friendly they all seem today. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger reviews Polis's promises.
There's always next year, a sports adage that surprisingly fits politics today, as Democratic Governor Jared Polis defended what he did and did not get from the Democratic-controlled legislature.
We got a lot of the items that we laid out in the State of the State done, and those that we didn't, we plan to continue to work on in the future.
A housing promise Polis made in his January speech was to change building codes to allow new 5-story multifamily residences to have a single staircase. That bill is awaiting his signature. Another bill limits lawsuits for condo construction errors, with the idea being more condos would be built at lower prices than homes. The catchy named Yes in God's Backyard would have given churches and schools permission to build housing on their land regardless of local zoning laws. That failed. But there's always next year for that bill that will put the state at odds with local elected leaders.
Yes in God's Backyard, we'll plan on continuing working on next year and hopefully get it done.
With the Democratic-controlled legislature rejecting some of his key policy wishes, is the seemingly presidential hopeful a lame duck governor?
I think this session was much better for us than 2 sessions ago when our whole housing agenda failed at the end of session in one bill.
When the session begins in January, the first 5 bills introduced by lawmakers are key policies they want passed, like Senate Bill 5, which would allow unions to form without a currently required second vote. And Polis plans to veto it, but refused to say the word veto, even when pushed by Colorado Sun reporter Jesse Paul.
I think that is what I've indicated very clearly, Jesse. I mean, I don't know how you can interpret that any other way.
Then there's the impact of decisions made in Washington, D.C.
And who's in the White House doesn't affect the steps we need to take here to build more housing, to better fund law enforcement, to better fund youth interventions.
But it does, because Polis admitted that once Congress figures out how much it will or will not fund Medicaid and food assistance, Colorado lawmakers could be called back into a special session to find money and likely cut elsewhere. Colorado's budget starts July 1st. That federal budget starts October 1st. The next Colorado legislative session is next January, so any funding decision made by Congress will impact Colorado before lawmakers go back to work, and that's why a special session is likely. Angeline.
So a special session to talk about how not to spend as much money, but then special sessions cost money.
It costs money. You got to pay the lawmakers, you got to pay the staff. I don't know, there's always an estimate, and I don't remember what it is at this moment, but yeah, as they're coming back to work to cut money, if they have to cut money, they also have to take into account cutting enough money to cover the costs of being at work for 3 days.
It's a little bit of a balance. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, Marshall. Denver City Councilors say they're likely staring down the barrel of a multi-million-dollar budget shortfall next year due to flatlining tax revenue and global economic uncertainty. But that's not stopping the city from considering significant raises for several top officials. The raises would go to the executive directors of 12 city departments, including Dottie, Public Safety, Parks and Rec, and the city attorney's office. The city's chief financial officer would be in for the biggest raise, a nearly 44% increase up to $266,000 a year. And Denver Airport CEO Phil Washington would be the highest paid mayoral appointee by far, getting a 17% raise up to $406,000 a year. Some city councilors question whether it's really the right time to be handing out raises since the city expects the budget to shrink next year. But others argue the raises are necessary to bring Denver's salaries in line with what other major cities are paying.
One of the things that is concerning to me is that having this conversation just right now while we're talking about city departments having to do a lot more with a lot less. The cleaning staff is furloughed 2 days a week now. That's low paying jobs that are really important. And so when I compare the need of that person to someone making over 200,000, it hurts my heart.
There is never a good time to have this conversation, but also we have to pay our people fairly.
If City Council approves the raises, they would go into effect July 1st. The proposal calls for most of the funding for these raises to be taken out of the mayor's budget this year to absorb the immediate impact on agencies. The federal database that meteorologists use to keep us safe during natural disasters is going away. Part of more federal cuts just announced today. Our Evan Krugel shows us why it could have lasting impacts here in Colorado.
Some storms aren't just measured by the size of what falls.
Tennis ball size hail in Wheat Ridge, 2-inch diameter hail in Denver.
Some are measured by how much it costs to clean up.
Weather geeks, climate geeks, we love to unpack all of it.
Becky Bollinger knows a thing or two about hail.
I would like to think so.
The former assistant state climatologist was there in 2019 to record one of the biggest hailstones ever found here.
Yeah, well, Russ measured it and I stood there and watched and took a picture. And
She's been tracking disasters in Colorado for decades and often relies on info from a NOAA database that shows the cost of extreme weather events.
I think it's a super big deal.
Today, Becky found out that database will no longer be updated.
Yeah, I think this decision essentially comes down to anything that really has the word climate in it is kind of being targeted. I can say that being a climate scientist myself, that this is something that we're seeing across the board. Pretty much anything that says climate, it's getting put under the microscope.
From hail to fire to winter storms, the data shows Colorado has seen 76 separate billion-dollar disasters since 1980, one of the highest totals in the country. Becky is worried Coloradans will feel the impact more than most.
It's really going to make it harder to know what events we need to prepare for, what areas are at risk for certain events, and we will feel the loss of that.
Now, insurance companies do track a lot of the same data, but that's private information and they don't have to release it. That database will remain accessible, but it won't have any new information on it moving forward. Angeline, so far, no billion-dollar disasters here yet in 2025, but we know it's only a matter of time before we see that next one here.
And we also know that they use this system, right, to compare and sort of predict how much things are going to cost. So without this, whole program in place, what do you do?
And that's what makes it so difficult. A good example, the Marshall Fire burned just 6,000 acres, but it cost more than $2 billion in damage. The Cameron Peak Fire, more than 200,000 acres, but only $100 million in damage. So only looking at the size of natural disasters doesn't give you that full scope. That's why these costs are so critical.
All right, Evan, thank you so much. 3 law enforcement officers who were on scene the night of a Clear Creek County deputy that he shot and killed Christian Glass have had their charges dropped after making a plea deal with prosecutors. That deal included taking additional training and making a video that will be used to teach other departments what not to do.
Everyone should have taken a step back and kind of delayed things and taken a breather.
That's Idaho Springs officer Brittany Morrow, one of several officers charged with failure to intervene in Glass's death in 2022. Glass called 911 in Clear Creek County while having a mental health crisis. The 22-year-old had crashed his car and refused to get out of the car when deputies arrived, saying he was scared. Former Deputy Andrew Buin broke his car window, shot him with beanbag rounds, fired a taser at Glass, and then shot him 5 times. 4 other officers were charged with failing to intervene as well, but prosecutors have dropped the cases against 3 of those officers after they made these training videos describing their experience. That includes former Clear Creek Deputy Tim Collins, who was Buin's partner that night.
What I think went wrong was a breakdown in communication. If I could go back, I would tap him on the shoulder or maybe speak a little bit louder and say, "Hey bud, do you want me to take this contact over?"
The DA told us if this video teaches one person or one officer to de-escalate enough to save a life, the plea deal will have been successful. More than 20,000 gallons of gas spilled on a reservation in Colorado. The tribe isn't happy with that cleanup so far. Denver celebrated an announcement made thousands of miles away today.
I didn't know anything about Pope Leo XIV until we had just this announcement this afternoon.
Colorado Catholics weigh in on a shock announcement, the first American pope. Next. The Southern Ute Indian tribe is frustrated with the response from a pipeline company and the state after a pipeline failure 5 months ago on their reservation. In December, an Enterprise Products pipeline spilled 23,000 gallons of gas in southwest Colorado and Durango and on the reservation. Several homes were evacuated and all but one homeowner has returned. Colorado's health department is responsible for overseeing that investigation, but the tribe says no one visited the site until last week. The health department says they normally oversee spill response remotely, and they've been having meetings with the tribe 3 times a week. The company says they've been working with the health department on a plan to protect drinking water and the Animas River by testing water as well as soil samples. Next week, the company is launching drones to get a better look at the spill. They're also considering installing a trench to prevent the gas from reaching the river. The tribe says they plan on holding the company accountable for all the damage and any impact on natural and cultural resources. Denver City Council is distancing themselves from Suncor Energy by rejecting a $25 million contract to buy asphalt from the company. Council members called out the pollution from Suncor's refinery in Commerce City as the reason. They voted unanimously this week to find another vendor for that asphalt. Suncor has paid tens of millions of dollars in penalties to the EPA as well as the state while continuing to violate pollution limits. And hi, Kathy. It was a beautiful day today, and hopefully more of that in store for the weekend.
If that's what you would like, that's what we'll deliver.
Okay, you know what? I like that. How about more of that?
Okay. Yeah, the 9 News Weather Impact Team. We want to keep you and everybody else happy, Angeline. And today, I just found that a lot of people were really happy with the break from the rain and the snow, and the sunshine just really helps to improve the mood and also warming us up a bit. Almost 70 in Denver today. Temperatures still in the mid-60s with light winds at the surface, but there's enough of a northerly wind flow that we're tracking a few showers coming from north to south over elevated terrain. Denver stays dry tonight. There's a little bit of shower activity out on the eastern plains, not reaching the ground. We'll see this again tomorrow. Skies will be clearing here, and this will be our first 8 p.m. sunset of this season, which is great. You'll wake up to sunshine again tomorrow. We'll see some high clouds in Denver with a few foothill and mountain showers, very similar to today, moving from north to south. Temperatures not as cold tonight. We started at 36 this morning. We'll jump to the mid-70s tomorrow, upper 70s Saturday, low 80s for Mother's Day Sunday. A warm weather trend continues into early next week, and then a bit cooler midweek with a chance of afternoon showers.
A little rain and then a little sun. Thanks, Kathy. Chances are, if you were in downtown Denver at some point today, you heard the bells ringing at the Cathedral Basilica near Logan and Colfax. Denver's Catholic community was celebrating the selection of a new pope, and the announcement came as a shock.
Turned out to be an American, which we've never thought in the life of the Catholic Church that we would ever see this moment. I didn't know anything about Pope Leo XIV until we had just this announcement this afternoon, and I had to look him up and see who he was.
Cardinal Robert Prevost, a Chicago native, became the first American-born pope in history today. He'll now be known as Pope Leo XIV. He's also a Peruvian citizen and spent several years in Augustinian leadership there before taking a leadership role in Rome in 2023. He's known as a centrist in the church, helping enact some of Pope Francis's more progressive reforms. Catholics in Colorado say Pope Leo was a surprise pick, given the Vatican's long-standing hesitancy to pick an American pope.
U.S. with all of our other political clout and the influence we have on the global scene, everybody's always just written it off and said, oh, we'll have an Italian or somebody from another part of the world. But to have somebody who grew up in Chicagoland go off and become Pope is quite a bit of good news for all of us in the middle of this country here today.
The last pope to take the name Leo was Leo XIII, an Italian who led the church from 1878 to 1903. Catholic leaders say the name suggests a continuation of Pope Francis's work with poor and marginalized communities.
Why sheep? Sheep are really perfectly suited to graze on our solar sites.
Dozens of sheep are fully booked for the summer at a community solar garden in northern Colorado. And a reminder, you can always catch Next streaming each night at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is now a podcast each weeknight. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Finding ways to make agriculture viable and sustainable is a constant struggle on Colorado's Eastern Plains, and sometimes you just need a little help to make it happen. That's a story between a farmer and a rancher in Weld County.
There's this huge opportunity to have this kind of dual harvest of the sun happening.
We were releasing the sheep on PS36 for Pivot Energy.
I'm Angie Burke with Pivot Energy.
Oh, they're so good.
Come. My name's Tom Brown. I own Brown Land and Livestock, and we graze sheep on renewable energy sites. So there's like 105 sheep. Pretty much their whole job here is just to maintain the vegetation for them instead of mechanical mowing.
Sheep are really perfectly suited to graze on our solar sites. They can get kind of underneath and around all of the solar equipment you see.
And that's all they do is just go back and forth eating grass. And it's definitely not a traditional way of ranching it by no means.
Ground-mounted solar arrays on agricultural land actually provide a really great solution that helps the landowner to maintain ownership of that parcel. It then supports other small and mid-sized family farms like Tom Brown.
Come on, buddy.
By providing a diversified and consistent revenue stream that's different from their usual operations.
I mean, kind of my focus is to be sustainable in ag, and this is like our opportunity to make sure that that happens for even, my kids' generation. The ranching still hasn't left just because we're on solar sites. Like our true values are, it goes back to just ranching. I think it went really good.
I think it was great. A community solar garden doesn't have to look a certain way, and that we can get creative and we can have this true co-location of energy production and agricultural production.
I love it. I mean, we couldn't be blessed even more.
The sheep will work throughout September. In addition to providing grazing for sheep, Pivot utilizes solar farms in Colorado to raise crops and for beehives too. We're back with a very heated debate, the most Colorado thing we saw today, next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, a little bit spicy. Now, the Denver Post reports the family that owns La Loma, that split ownership across locations because of divorce, found out who got custody of Grandma's green chili recipe, and it turns out both sides will get rights to that recipe. So if you like it the way they dish it up, you'll still be able to find it at any of their locations. As far as feedback, no feedback. When Kyle's gone, you guys are so quiet. We want to hear from you because you never know. I might say something that he wouldn't. Thanks for joining us on Next.